Welcome to the Get Real podcast. I'm Austin, your host, and today we're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs, and more specifically, what's next for them. We all know what happens. Tony Parker, for some reason, he's in Charlotte, playing for them as their backup point guard. He's gone. He wanted a bigger role. The Spurs couldn't guarantee that with emerging players like DeJounte Murray, Derek White. Mills is still on the roster. Just wasn't enough playing time for him. He still wanted to play and not just be a mentor. He didn't mind being a mentor. He just wanted some playing time with it, and the Spurs couldn't promise that. So he decided to do what's best for him and play in Charlotte, and that's fine. But now also Ginobili retired. And all of a sudden, the big three is completely gone, just like that. We kind of saw it coming, but it still feels like it happened abruptly. Duncan retired, Ginobili retired, Parker's playing somewhere else, and now we used to think, well, they'd have Kawhi Leonard to fall back on, and now that fell apart. As these things happen with most franchises, it just seems like the Spurs used to be invulnerable to that kind of thing. But let's look at what we have now. You still have Greg Popovich, one of, and in my personal opinion, the greatest head coach of all time. I mean, you can give me all the other guys. You can give me Phil Jackson and what he did. Give Pop the greatest player of all time, and Shaq, and Kobe, and Rodman. You give them all those guys and see what Pop does. But that's not neither here or there. Right now, they have LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan. Murray's out for the year. He tore his ACL in the preseason. That hurts, but when healthy, Murray has shown to be an elite defender. He won second-team All-NBA in his sophomore year. Very solid guy. 6'4" point guard, about 6'5" with a 6'10" wingspan. Very solid. Derek White, he's more likely to be a sixth man, but also very well-rounded. Won the G League championship with the Austin Spurs. He's coming to his own, and in fact, if he was healthy, he'd be starting right now. They also picked up Walker in the draft, who was supposed to be a top 10 pick. He has kind of slipped to number 18, and the Spurs picked him up, and he's listed as the steal of the draft. He's a shooting guard, 6'5", and again 6'10". He's shown to have kind of a Dwayne Wade, Donovan Mitchell kind of play style. Very exciting to see what he can do. They also got Jakob Poeltl in the trade for DeRozan from Toronto. And when you look at his advanced defensive stats, he is kind of Rudy Gobert-esque in how he defends the rim. Not as good as him yet. He's only 22, but he was the number 9 overall pick in 2016. Very solid guy. So they're not all old guys. They have youth. They have pieces. Davis Bertans is 25, 26. He's a shooter. They have those pieces that are coming up in place. So some foundation is there. They also have 2 draft picks looking into this coming 2019 NBA draft. So it can happen. But as of right now, obviously they're not a contender. I still have them in the playoffs as a best case scenario, a 6th seed. Worst case, an 8th seed, unless DeRozan or LA goes down. Initially had him as a 4th to 5th seed range with Murray playing, but now that he's out for the year, kind of tempered my expectations. Still a very, very good team, and with Pop at the helm of that ship, you can't really doubt them. Not to mention that they also have R.C. Buford as the GM. That guy, Pop is amazing. He's great, but in terms of finding players in the draft, making the roster, putting this team together, and help lead them to the 5 championship, RC has been a huge part of that. That's why Philly went after him this offseason to make him the GM. 99% of the league would take this guy for a GM today and fire their GM right now. He's just a heavily sought-out guy, very smart, knows how to find players. But let's look at the 2 key pieces they have right now who are going to lead them to the playoffs. DeRozan, 29. He showed that he might lead the team in assists this year. He had 5 assists on opening night, or 4 assists, my bad. He can move the ball. His only weakness is he's shown to be a lackluster defender, and he can't shoot the 3-ball efficiently so far. And in this league, that really hurts. But when you have Chip England, the guy who made Kawhi the shooter that he is, the guy that made Danny Green the shooter he is, helping him out, if you can make him serviceable in those 2 departments, that's still a 2nd-team All-NBA player. They both won, him and LA won 2nd-team All-NBA last year. And as long as you have Pop on that team, they're not going to tank. For them to tank, LA and DeRozan would have to get hurt. Pop said isn't much. We're going for the playoffs, and then we're trying to be the best team we can be when those playoffs come around. So don't expect the Spurs, outside of another act of God coming down on them, injuring them, to just fold. They're going to keep scrapping. They're going to keep going. But what are they going to do down the line? How are they going to make sure they're not in this realm of mediocrity going forward, where they're just the 5th, 6th, 7th seed, but never really win anything, but don't lose enough to get any talent? Here they have a few options. Number one, I don't think they should trade these two guys this year because they both give very solid veteran leadership, and also right now one of these players is the longest tenured Spur on that roster, and that's Pau Gasol's and Patrick Mills. Mills is the longest tenured Spur on there. He's been there since 2012. That should tell you everything you need to know about how different this team is. The second longest tenured Spur, LaMarcus Aldridge, and they got him in 2015. So they need these guys and need what little corporate knowledge they have for this season to get them through. But that being said, you need to trade Mills. After this year, he's making about 2 more years, $26 million, making it 13 apiece for the next 2 years after this. You got to get that contract off your books, especially when you have DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Brian Forbes has shown that he can do everything Mills can do on a cheaper contract. So at that point, after this season, what good does Mills do on your roster? You may have to part with a pick to get him off there, but if you can do that, do it. Pau Gasol, he's their second center on that roster outside of Podol. Well, if you count their second rounder they picked up this offseason, Metu, but he's not going to be playing, so really they only have 2 centers. You keep Gasol, he's a great teammate, he's won 2 championships, he can help this sort of young team along. He is slated for $16 million next year, but, and people keep forgetting this, he's only guaranteed 6.7 of that. So you can go to a team like Atlanta who would like that leadership for that young roster, and Atlanta's still rebuilding, they will be for the foreseeable future, saying, hey, we'll give you a few second-round picks, take this guy off, he only cost about $7 million, you clear some cap space, that's $20 million off your books. And then maybe you can get another option to, another third player to help, take the load off of LA and DeRozan offensively. The Spurs are in desperate need of, they're in desperate need of 2 things. Both 4 positions really lack players who are going to be the guys of the future. Rudy Gay is fine. He's shown to be his most efficient, as what tends to happen to players that go to San Antonio, but he's 32 years old. He's not going to be there forever. And luckily, this draft coming up has a crazy amount of small forwards and power forwards who the Spurs can handpick and go, okay, we get 2 draft picks, right? We can get one of each position, fill those lines up. Or if you see a guy in free agency, like after you trade Mills and Powell, you can go get a young guy, you can find a guy. That to me is the biggest people they really need right now to fill in those spots. Those are the spots of need that they need the most. Point guard spot, pretty good. DeRozan will be fine for the time being. I think once he's finally off his contract, they'll have Lonnie Walker taking that shooting guard spot, the one they got with the 18th pick. He'll be good for them. Podol, I think, will be an average center, but still good enough to lock that center spot for the future. LaMarcus Aldridge, I can see him staying for quite a while. He's under contract for quite a few more years, but he's 32 going on 33. Right now is the time where you groom the future power forward while, he's locking down that position. And the small forward spot, they lost Kawhi Leonard. All they have is Rudy Gay. So that needs to be taken care of as well. Targets for 2019 in free agency, a good player that could fit for them is a Chris Middleton type, a guy who can shoot, defend, handle the ball, because right now defensively they're kind of in trouble. Murray's great, Podol will be fine, but you need more off the perimeter. You're just going to need more going down the road. Offensively this year, the Spurs will actually look pretty damn good. They're moving the ball. I don't know if you watched the game against Minnesota. They moved that ball better than, it was almost reflective of 2014 when they won the championship. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but when you look back at that ball movement, because with Kawhi, the only weakness with him is to get him going, it's almost pure iso ball. Kawhi Leonard does not pass the ball very efficiently, and it's just not his game style, and that's fine. It works for him. But now you'll see a lot of good ball movement. I think that system fits him better. So those are the things the Spurs need to look into. Trade Mills, trade Powell if you can. Look at the small forward and power forward position to be filled up in either free agency or the draft, most likely the draft. Do the Spurs make trades like this? Usually not. They take care of their guys. If there's a weakness for a team that takes care of their players, that's it. They tend to keep them longer than needed. But all hope is not lost. They're not going to turn into Memphis. They're not going to turn into a rebuilding team right away. It's going to take a lot to make that happen. And with all else fails, when Pop retires, when these guys are getting too old, if they still have R.C. Buford, he is the key to putting players on this roster that are going to keep them competitive, finding these steals in the draft. They found it with Parker. They found it with Mono. They traded a freaking backup point guard for Kawhi Leonard in the first place, and George Hill. That is one of the biggest steals in NBA history, is trading for Kawhi Leonard. These things happen with them, and I have no doubt that they can continue it going forward. As always, if you agree, disagree, want to talk about it, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Tune in for next time. This is the Get Real Podcast.